everyone, it's Nicole, and I'm here with more Crop and Create prep page kits. And this time from now on, it's gonna be on sort of times four. But I can tell you that to prepare all the 15 page kits that I did, it took me about 3 hours. But once I sat down at Crop and Create, I had all those pages already. And then I still had 10 that were ready from my big page prep kits from last year when I was doing Calvin Ball. So altogether I brought 25, which was way more than I needed. But I'm going to a crop at the end of April again. So, or even, I don't even think I'm going to wait till then. Whenever I have a minute that I can scrap, I'm just going to grab one of those page kits and I'm just going to put them together, and I'll go through another prepping pages, when I go to that crop. And what I like about putting the page kits together, as you can tell, they're having issues with putting my Netflix together, but you can be watching something on Netflix, and because it's not something that you really need to be concentrating a lot on, like I'm just looking at the pages that I had put together at the beginning, and now I can just go through the embellishments and find some embellishments that are, all in the same tone. And maybe if I was, if this page was like there's a lot of brown and I want to make the pink or orange really pop out, well, then I just find everything that would be orange and then I put it on the page. Still at this point, I have no idea what kind of pictures I want to put, but I'm starting to have a little bit more of an idea. Like ideas are starting to spark because, as you saw, one of the first things that I put down on the page was a giraffe. So then I was like, I have giraffe pictures, so maybe I can go through my stack of pictures and find some pictures of some giraffes that I have taken over the year. Now, as I'm choosing the embellishments, I just make sure that I have different textures. So different, I have, let's say, circles or flat. Okay, we'll talk about textures first. I make sure that there's flat, so that die cuts and that kind of stuff. And then I add some stickers and then maybe some puffy stickers. And then when I'm at the crop, I always bring like extra stuff like enamel dots and that kind of stuff, or even ink. And those are all different textures. So then I make sure that I have that kind of things with me so that I can add different textures to the page. Now, as far as the kind of die cuts that I put on, these page kits, is I just make sure there's a variety of sizes. So I make sure that there's, hearts or stars, or, I choose one or two different shapes in the same color. It doesn't mean that I'm going to use both, but then while I'm making the page, then I can choose one or the other depending on the photo that I took, that I put with that page kit. And then I make sure that there's tags, circles, embellishments to start my embellishment clusters. And then if instead of putting the whole sheet of puffy stickers, I just take a little piece of wax paper and I just put my puffy stickers on that wax paper, so that as I'm putting other page kits together, I can still use the rest of those puffy stickers that are left on that sticker sheet or puffy sheet. And that way of doing page kits for me really works, because as I'm choosing the pattern papers, you're going through them. And some people asked me, do you just do like single sheets like that, or do you get some from your paper pad? Whatever I start off with. Sometimes I'll have paper pads, sometimes I'll just have like for this time I just grabbed a whole package of different pattern papers, and they're all single sheets and they're all from different manufacturers. And it's one of the ways that I stored my papers. And it's really weird because when I do my scrap book room tour, you'll see that I have different ways to sort my papers. So I have a spot where I have my paper pads, just any type of paper pads. Then I have another spot where I have my newer paper pads. So it'll be my Dear Lizzie, my Maggie Holmes, Amy Tangerine, Chamel. So they're all together, so I know where they are. Then I have another spot where I sort my pattern paper by colors, and those are my older pattern papers. A lot of them are Stampin' Up! From when I was a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And then I have another section where I divided my pattern papers in alphabetical order by manufacturers. And those are sort of like the mid, like they're not old, but they're not new. And they're sort of divided. Then I have another stack that they're all only two sections, two like slats, or basically, from a container that has 4 dividers. I only have 2 that I just took a bunch of pattern papers and I just stuffed them in there. And those are newish. They're probably like 2014 and newer. And that's the stack that I grabbed. And I just, depending on how I feel, I'll know from which stack or which part of my room that I'll want to go dig my pattern papers from. But whatever stack I decide to play with, we'll call it play with, start picking my pattern papers from. After, the 4th or 5th kit, I find that I know what's in that stack. It's like my brain gets accustomed to all the pattern papers that are there, and I find it so much easier to start putting pattern papers together in color combos. And then you're less likely, well, I find when I pick my pattern papers and I just pick it in the moment, a lot of times I end up with white cardstock as the background. Because I'm just picking in that moment. But when I have a stack of pattern papers like that, I notice that my page kits, I have pattern papers as the background. And because, let's say, the page before I decided to go with orange, well, then the next page I'll try to pick a different color. So I'll try to do like blue, and then green, and then yellow, and pink. And I find there's more variety in the different colors of page kits that I'm going to do, because one, I want to use all the supplies that I brought put with that kit, broad kit, because in this case I chose 4 or 5 die cut packages. So I want to make sure that I'm using as much of the different die cuts that I can, but plus I don't feel like choosing the same colors over and over again. So it helps me get way more variety in the different pages that I put together. And again, as I'm putting these pages together, maybe I don't know what pictures I want to use at that point. When I chose the pattern papers, I had no idea. Now, as I'm choosing the die cuts, I'm starting to think a little bit more like, oh, this would be cool with these pattern papers. And I usually keep my recipe cards really close as I'm doing this. And if I think of some pictures that I want to put with these page kits, I'll write it down on a piece of, even just a piece of white paper, and just stick it in with that kit. So as I'm choosing my pattern papers, or as I'm choosing my photos, then I have that little note to remind me, hey, you were thinking of these pictures when you put these embellishments together. And I find this part of the process, I guess, so relaxing, because I love pattern papers. So as I'm doing that section, I'm just like, oh, I love using older pattern papers, and oh my goodness, I remember when I bought that, I loved it so much, and it's fun to being able to put these page kits together. And then as I open the die cuts, it was like, oh yeah, I bought that a few years ago, and it's nice to just go and use them up. I am not It sounds kind of funny because I'm not a hoarder of stuff. It's not as if that I look at stuff and say, oh no, I don't want to use it for this page. I've never been like that. But when you've had, when you've been scrapbooking for 18 years, then you have a lot of stuff. So, people might look at you and say, oh my gosh, you're hoarding all the stuff. I put out a lot of pages a year. I have to say last year was probably the least amount of pages that I have done in the last probably like 10 years. I did 80 pages last year, probably closer to 90 with my classes, probably closer to 100 actually with my classes, but I did 80 videos almost on YouTube, and then with my classes it was 100 pages. But for me it felt like that wasn't a lot because the year before I did 240 pages. So I do a lot of layouts, and so anyway, I just kind of look at my stash as my retirement fund, and I'm going to have, tons of supplies and fun stuff to play with once I retire. But I totally forgot where I was going with this, but it's just nice to be able to, use the stuff. And I don't mind if I see, die cuts coming to an end. I feel a sense of accomplishment that I've actually used them. And it's just nice to be able to use the stuff that you've had for, whether it's been a week or whether it's been 10 or 15 years. It's just not nice to have these supplies in a page kit, and then when you have a minute, or 30 minutes or so, half an hour, that you have something ready to just put the page together. Now I have one more, I think, of these videos where we're going to put the rest of the page kits together, and then I'm going to show you when I chose the pictures to go with this. Now I have to say I ran out of time to do my journaling, and but we'll talk about that in the next video. So that's it for this one, and I just want to thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you're having a great week. Thanks for watching. Bye.